I walk into the courtroom, and the first thing I smell isn't justice, it's expensive French perfume and a level of entitlement that makes my skin crawl. I've been sitting on this bench for decades. I've seen it all. I've seen the bottom feeders, the scammers, and the poor souls who are just too dim-witted to realize they're being taken for a ride. But there's a specific kind of person that gets under my skin faster than a splinter in a thumb. The wealthy who think their bank account balance is an IQ score. I sit down, adjust my lace collar, and look at the papers in front of me. Bard hands me the file with that look on his face, the one that says, "Judge, you're going to love this one." I don't love it. I never love it. I just want the truth, and I want it fast. On the left, we have Mr. Elias Thorne. He's a landscape architect. He looks tired. He's wearing a suit that's seen better days, but it's clean, and he's standing up straight. He's suing for $5,000, the maximum jurisdiction of this court, for unpaid labor and materials. On the right, we have Mrs. Victoria Sterling. She's draped in enough jewelry to sink a small yacht. Her hair is coiffed to within an inch of its life, and she's looking at Mr. Thorne like he's something she accidentally stepped on in the garden. Behind her stands a man in a $4,000 suit, who I assume is her lawyer, though why you'd bring a high-priced attorney to a small claims court is beyond me unless you're planning on putting on a show. And I don't like shows. I'm the only one who gets to perform in this room. Mr. Thorne, I start not even looking at the woman yet. You say you spent 3 months designing and installing a Zen garden for the Sterling estate, and you haven't been paid a dime of the final installment. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, he says. His voice is steady, but I can see his hands shaking slightly on the podium. I completed the work exactly as specified in the contract, but when I sent the final invoice, Mrs. Sterling told me the energy of the stones was discordant and refused to pay. I pause. I look at him. I look at the papers. Discordant energy? Is that a technical term in landscaping, Mr. Thorne? Because in my world, it sounds like a load of hogwash. That's what she said. Your Honor, he replies. I turn my gaze to Mrs. Sterling. She doesn't flinch. She doesn't even look at me. She's busy inspecting her manicure. Mrs. Sterling, I bark. Her head snaps up. Good. I'm talking to you. Put your hands down and look at me. This isn't a spa. It's a court of law. Did you or did you not sign a contract for this work? She sighs, a long, theatrical sound that suggests I'm wasting her precious time. My assistant might have signed something, Judge, but the man is a fraud. He promised a sanctuary of peace. Do I look peaceful to you? You look like you're looking for a fight, and you've come to the right place. I snap. I don't care about your peace. I care about the law. Did he do the work? Bird, show me the photos. Bird hands me a stack of glossies. The garden is beautiful. Intricate stonework, rare plants, a flowing stream. It's a masterpiece. I look at the before photos. It was a dirt lot. Now it's a paradise. This looks like work to me, Mrs. Sterling, I say, tossing the photos onto my desk. In fact, it looks like very expensive work. You've got Japanese maples in here that cost more than my first car. Why haven't you paid the man? She leans forward, her eyes narrowing. Because he insulted me. He had the audacity to suggest that my choice of placement for the meditation bench was ergonomically unsound. He's a servant, Judge. Servants don't tell me where to sit. I feel the heat rising in my neck. A servant? Sir, is she paying you for your expertise or your servitude? Mr. Thorne clears his throat. I was trying to explain that the bench was on a slope and needed a concrete footer. Otherwise it would tip. She told me to just do it and then complained when she almost fell off it. He's lying, Victoria Sterling screams. She doesn't just speak, she shrieks. He set me up. He wanted to see me fall. Shush, I yell, slamming my hand on the bench. Don't speak unless I ask you a question. You're not in your mansion now, Mrs. Sterling. You're in my house. And in my house, we don't scream like banshees. We use logic. If there is any left in that expensive head of yours. She looks stunned. Apparently, no one has told her to shut up in about 20 years. Her lawyer tries to intervene. Your Honor, if I may, you may not. I point a finger at him. Sit down and keep your mouth shut. You're a hat rack in this room. This is small claims. She speaks for herself. Now, Mrs. Sterling, I'm looking at your defense. You claim emotional distress caused by a tilting bench. Do you have a medical report? Did you break a bone? Did you even bruise a designer buttock? She huffs. It's the principle, Judge Judy. The man is ungrateful. My husband's company is a major donor to the city's infrastructure. We basically built this town. People like Mr. Thorne should be honored to have our name on their portfolio. Honored? I lean back, staring at her through my glasses. I've heard some arrogant things in my time, but this is top tier. Honor doesn't pay the mortgage, lady. Honor doesn't buy the stones he laid in your yard. You owe him $5,000. It's a drop in the bucket for you, and it's a life savings for him. Pay the man. I will do no such thing, she says, her voice turning cold and sharp. You don't understand how the world works, Judge. There are people who lead and people who follow. He is a follower, and you're just a public servant. I feel a smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. Not a happy smile, the kind of smile a shark gives right before it bites. A public servant? You're right. I serve the public by keeping people like you from trampling over people like him. And right now, the service I'm providing is telling you that you're losing this case. Bird, do we have the final invoice? As Bird moves toward the podium, Mrs. Sterling does something I've never seen in all my years. She doesn't just get angry. She transforms. She stands up, tall and rigid, and she walks right up to the edge of the bench, ignoring the stop line. Listen to me carefully, Judy, she says, her voice dropping to a low, dangerous hiss. The courtroom goes dead silent. Even the gallery stops breathing. My husband owns the banks that hold the city's debt. He owns the developers who build these courthouses. I don't care about $5,000. I could burn that in my fireplace to keep my feet warm. But I don't like being told no by a woman in a cheap lace collar. She leans in closer, her eyes locked on mine. I don't think you realize who you're talking to. I don't just have money. I have influence. I own the ground you're sitting on. In fact, I own you. The silence that follows is deafening. I don't blink. I don't move. I just sit there looking at this woman who has clearly lost her mind to the fumes of her own vanity. Bird takes a step forward, his hand moving toward his belt, but I raise a hand to stop him. I want this. I want every second of this. You own me? I say, my voice a whisper that carries to the back of the room. Lock, stock, and barrel. She says, a triumphant, wicked smirk spreading across her face. One phone call and your little television show is a memory. One word to the right person and you're back in a night court in the Bronx, handling traffic tickets. Now, are you going to dismiss this ridiculous claim, or do I have to make that call? I look at her for a long, long time. I look at the lawyer, who has turned a shade of gray that matches his suit. I look at Mr. Thorne, who looks like he wants to disappear into the floorboards. Then I pick up my gavel. I don't hit the block yet. I just hold it. Mrs. Sterling, I say, my voice perfectly calm, you've made a very big mistake. You see, there's one thing you can't buy, no matter how many banks your husband owns. And what's that? She sneers. The truth, I say. And the truth is, you're a bully. And I've spent my entire life punching bullies in the nose. I let the silence hang in the air for a beat too long. I want her to feel the weight of it. I want her to realize that for the first time in her pampered, bubble-wrapped life, she stepped into a ring with someone who doesn't care about her last name or the zeros in her bank account. Bird, I say, my eyes never leaving hers. Does it look like I'm owned by anyone? Bird doesn't even crack a smile, but I see the glint in his eye. Not from where I'm standing, Judge? Exactly, I snap. I look back at Victoria Sterling. She's still standing there, smirking, waiting for me to crumble. She actually thinks this is a movie where the villain wins by waving a checkbook. Sit down, Mrs. Sterling. Now, before I have Officer Bird help you find your seat in a much less comfortable room downstairs. Her lawyer finally finds his voice, though it's 2 octaves higher than it was 5 minutes ago. Your Honor, my client she's under a lot of stress. The renovations have been taxing. She didn't mean, don't tell me what she meant, I roar. She said it. She said she owns me. She said she owns the ground this court is built on. Let me be very clear with you, counselor. If your client has a receipt for my soul, she'd better produce it right now, or she'd better start writing a check to Mr. Thorne. Victoria Sterling sits, but she doesn't tuck her tail. She crosses her legs and sighs, looking at the ceiling. This is so tedious, she mutters. Tedious? I lean forward, my voice dropping to that dangerous low. You know what's tedious? Working 40 hours a week in the sun, hauling stones and planting trees for a woman who thinks thank you is an optional accessory. Mr. Thorne, let's get back to the facts. You have a signed contract. Show me the signature. Mr. Thorne hands a document to Bird, who brings it up to me. I scan it. It's a standard service agreement. $25,000 total. $20,000 paid. $5,000 remaining upon completion. And right there, at the bottom, is a signature that looks like a bird had a seizure with a fountain pen. Is this your signature, Mrs. Sterling? I ask. It's a scrawl, she says dismissively. I was in a hurry. I was headed to a charity gala for underprivileged children. You'd think someone like you would appreciate that. I don't care if you were headed to the moon to hand-deliver cheese to the man on the moon. I snap. Is this your signature? It's mine, she snaps back. Good. And Mr. Thorne, you say the work is complete. Mrs. Sterling, you say it isn't because the energy is wrong. Did the contract specify anything about energy? I look through the pages. I see drainage, irrigation, hardscaping, mulching. I do not see feng shui, vibrations, or cosmic alignment. It's implied, she says, her voice rising again. When you hire a top-tier designer, you expect an experience. My crystals in the conservatory started clouding up the moment he finished that garden. My yoga instructor said, the chi is blocked. I can't live with blocked chi, Judge. I stare at her. I actually stop and stare. Madam, I have been a judge for nearly 40 years. I have heard people blame their crimes on drugs, alcohol, bad upbringings, and even the full moon. But this is the first time someone has tried to stiff a contractor because their crystals got cloudy. Are you high? Are you on something right now? The gallery erupts. A few people actually laugh out loud. I don't stop them. How dare you, she screams, standing up again. I am a Sterling, my husband's family. I don't care about your husband's family. I slam my gavel, whack. The sound echoes like a gunshot. If your husband's family is so powerful, why didn't they teach you how to read a contract? Why didn't they teach you that when you hire a man to do a job and he does it, you pay him? You don't pay him in energy. You pay him in U.S. currency. He insulted me, she yells back. He told me I was difficult. I look at Mr. Thorne. Did you call her difficult, sir? He looks down at his boots, then back at me. Your Honor, she asked me to move a 3-ton boulder 6 inches to the left because it was staring at her. When I told her it would require a crane and another $2,000 in labor, she told me I was spiritually bankrupt. I might have muttered that she was being difficult under my breath. Only difficult? I look at Victoria. If I were him, I would have used a much stronger word and it wouldn't have been spiritual. See, she points a manicured finger at me. You're biased. You're just like him. You hate people who have achieved more than you. I laugh. I can't help it. It's a dry, raspy laugh. Achieved more? Mrs. Sterling, you married a checkbook. That's not an achievement. That's a transaction. Mr. Thorne here built something with his hands. He created a garden out of a dirt lot. That is an achievement. What have you done today besides get your hair done and threaten a civil servant? She turns to her lawyer. Do something. Tell her who we are. The lawyer looks like he wants to crawl into a hole. He leans in and whispers something to her. She brushes him off like a fly. I don't care about the rules of court, she shouts. She reaches into her Hermes bag, which probably costs more than the $5,000 she owes, and pulls out a gold-plated cell phone. I'm calling Richard. Right now. You're finished, Judy. You're done. Bird, I say calmly. Bard moves faster than a man his size should. He's at her side in 3 seconds. Ma'am, put the phone away. Electronic devices are not permitted to be used while court is in session. Get your hands off me, she shrieks. Do you know what this suit costs? This is silk. I don't care if it's spun from the cocoons of magical worms. I say, my voice rising to match her pitch. Put the phone down, or you're going to spend the night in a cell where the only thing you'll be owning is a plastic tray of mystery meat. Do you understand me? She freezes. She looks at Bird, who is a very large man with a very heavy belt. She looks at me. She sees that I am not blinking. She sees that I am actually hoping she tries to make that call. I want her to try. I want to hold her in contempt so badly I can taste it. Slowly, she lowers the phone. Her face is a shade of purple I usually only see on eggplants. Good, I say. Now, let's talk about this emotional distress you mentioned in your countersuit. You're suing Mr. Thorne for $100,000 because you claim the bad energy of the garden caused you to lose a lucrative modeling contract for a luxury skincare line. Is that correct? She smooths her hair, trying to regain her dignity. Yes. I was so distraught by the disharmony in my backyard that I developed a breakout, a blemish, right here. She points to a spot on her cheek that is so covered in foundation it looks like a plaster wall. The agency said I was unshootable. I lost the contract. It's his fault. I pick up a magnifying glass I keep on my desk. I lean over. Bard, bring her closer. I want to see this $100,000 pimple. She recoils. Don't touch me. I'm not touching you. I'm looking at you. Move up. She begrudgingly steps forward. I peer through the glass. I don't see a blemish, Mrs. Sterling. I see a woman who is trying to scam a hard-working man out of $5,000 by using a strikeout as an excuse. Do you have a letter from this agency? Do you have a doctor's note stating that bad garden energy causes acne? It's a known fact in holistic circles, she cries. This isn't a holistic circle. This is a court of law. We deal in evidence. We deal in, did you do the work and did you pay the bill? I slam my hand down again. I've heard enough. I don't need to hear another word about your chi, your crystals, or your husband's bank account. But I haven't finished my defense, she yells. Your defense is a fairy tale, and I'm not in the mood for a bedtime story. I snap. I'm ready to rule, but first, I want to address something you said earlier. You said you own me. I stand up. I'm not a tall woman, but when I stand up on that bench, I feel 10 feet tall. I look down at her. I've been a judge in New York City. I've looked murderers in the eye. I've looked at the worst humanity has to offer. And not once has anyone had the sheer, unadulterated gall to stand in my courtroom and tell me they own me. You think your money makes you a god? You think it makes you immune to the rules that the rest of us have to follow? I pick up my pen. Well, I have news for you, Mrs. Sterling. In this room, the only thing that has power is the truth. And the truth is, you're a common thief. You stole this man's time. You stole his labor. And you tried to use your husband's shadow to scare me into helping you commit that theft. I start writing on the judgment sheet. The scratching of my pen is the only sound in the room. Victoria is vibrating with rage, her breath coming in short, ragged gasps. I am awarding the plaintiff, Mr. Thorne, the full $5,000, I announce. No, she screams. Wait, I'm not finished, I say, looking up. I am also dismissing your countersuit with prejudice. It is frivolous, it is insulting, and if I could fine you for wasting my time with it, I would. But I'm not done yet. I look at her lawyer. Counselor, you're going to have a very long talk with your client about the definition of contempt of court. Because if she says one more word, if she so much as breathes in a way that sounds like a protest, I am going to have her hauled away. You can't do this, Victoria shrieks, her voice cracking. I'll have your job. I'll buy this whole network and fire you by lunchtime. I smile. It's the shark smile again. Bird, take her. The room gasps. What? The lawyer stammers. Your Honor, please. I gave her a warning. I say, my voice is cold as a Siberian winter. She ignored it. She just threatened the court again. Bird, escort Mrs. Sterling to the holding cell. She can stay there until she cools off. Maybe the energy in the cell will help clear up her complexion. You bitch, Victoria screams as Bird grabs her arm. He doesn't hurt her, but he's firm. He's had enough of her too. You can't touch me. Richard, call Richard. Tell Richard to bring $5,000. I yell over her screams as she's led away, because she isn't leaving until that judgment is satisfied. I sit back down. I adjust my collar. My heart is pounding, but my hands are steady. I look at Mr. Thorne. He's standing there with his mouth open, looking at the door where the billionaire's wife was just dragged through. Mr. Thorne, I say. He looks at me, blinking. Yes, Your Honor. Next time I say, get the money up front. And if they start talking about energy, run the other way. Case closed. I slam the gavel. Whack! But as I watch them clear the courtroom, I know this isn't over. A woman like Victoria Sterling doesn't go quietly into a holding cell, and I have a feeling Richard is going to be more than just a name on a checkbook. I head back to my chambers, my mind already racing. I've dealt with rich bullies before, but there was something in her eyes, a level of genuine delusion that usually comes with a lot of backup. I sit down at my desk and Bird walks in a few minutes later. She's in the cell, Judge, he says, leaning against the doorframe. She's currently trying to tell the walls that they're fired. Did she get her phone call, I ask? She's making it now, Bird says. And Judge? She didn't call a lawyer. She called the mayor's office. I lean back and let out a long breath. The mayor, huh? Well, Bird, I hope the mayor likes gardening, because he's about to get a very messy earful. The phone on my desk doesn't just ring, it screams. It's the direct line from the supervising judge's office. I look at it for a second, savoring the silence of my chambers before the storm hits. I know exactly who is on the other end. Victoria Sterling's phone call didn't go to a lawyer or a florist. It went straight to the top of the food chain. I pick it up. She's in the cell, Harold. Save your breath. Judy, Harold's voice is strained, the sound of a man who has spent too many years navigating the political swamp of New York. Do you have any idea who you just put in lockup? That's Victoria Sterling. Her husband, Richard, I know exactly who he is, Harold, I interrupt, leaning back in my chair. He's the man whose wife thinks she can walk into a court of law and treat it like a private country club. She stood there in front of God and everyone and told me she owns me. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time I checked, my soul was still my own property, and so is this courtroom. She's calling the mayor Judy. She's calling the commissioner. This is going to be a PR nightmare. Let them call, I say, my voice dropping to a low, cold hum. Let them all call. I'll give them the same answer I gave her. In this room, the law is the only thing that matters. Not a donor list, not a social registry, and certainly not a woman with more diamonds than sense. She stays in the cell until she apologizes to this court and pays the judgment. Case closed. I hang up before he can respond. I look at Bird, who is leaning against the doorframe, looking entirely too amused. The mayor's office is on line 2, Bird says, pointing to the blinking light. Let it blink, I say. I have a trial to finish. Bring in the next case. But before Bird can move, the heavy oak doors of the courtroom burst open. This isn't a bailiff. This isn't a clerk. This is a man who walks like he's walking onto his own private jet. He's in his late 50s, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably costs more than the average American's house. Behind him are 3 men with briefcases. The legal cavalry has arrived. This must be Richard Sterling. I don't wait for him to speak. I walk back out onto the bench. I don't care if I'm technically in recess. If he wants a show, I'm the director. Mr. Sterling, I presume? I say, sitting down and looking at him over my glasses. The man stops at the bar, He doesn't look angry. He looks annoyed, like he's dealing with a malfunctioning toaster. Judge Shaindlin, I believe there's been a misunderstanding. My wife is currently being held in a holding cell like a common criminal. Your wife is a common criminal at the moment, Mr. Sterling, I snap. She's in contempt of court. She attempted to intimidate a judge. She refused to satisfy a legal judgment. And she's currently shrieking so loud the people in the basement can hear her. So, if there's a misunderstanding, it's on your end. Richard Sterling takes a step forward. His lawyers fan out behind him. I've already had my office wire the $5,000 to the plaintiff's account. The debt is settled. Now, I'd like my wife released. Immediately. The debt is settled? Good. That's step one, I say, tapping my pen on the desk. Now let's talk about step two. The respect for this institution. Your wife told me she owns me, Mr. Sterling. She told me she could have me fired by lunchtime. Does she speak for you when she says those things? Richard Sterling sighs. He looks at me with a patronizing tilt of his head. Victoria is passionate. She's used to getting what she wants. We all are. Now, I don't want to make this unpleasant. I've already spoken to the network executives. They're very concerned about the optics of this situation. They'd like to see this resolved quietly. I feel the familiar heat rising. This is it. This is the I own you moment, just delivered with a silk tie instead of a screech. Are you threatening me, Mr. Sterling, I ask? My voice is quiet. When I'm quiet, that's when people should start running. Because it sounds like you're telling me that if I don't let your wife go, you're going to use your influence to make my life difficult. I'm saying that the world works on relationships, Judge, he says. He leans on the podium, looking me dead in the eye. And you've just damaged a very important one. My wife isn't an architect or a gardener. She's a Sterling. We don't sit in cells. We don't get schooled by TV judges. Now, release her, and we can all forget this happened. I look at him. I look at his lawyers. I look at Bird, who has moved closer to the bench, his hand resting on his belt. The air in the room is thick enough to cut with a knife. You know, Mr. Sterling, I start my voice gaining strength. I've spent a lot of time in this robe. I've seen people who have nothing, people who are one paycheck away from the street, and they still have more dignity in their pinky finger than you and your wife have in your entire estate. You think your money makes you a different species. You think the rules are for other people. I lean forward over the edge of the bench. But here's the thing about a courtroom. It's a leveling ground. When you walk through those doors, your bank balance stays outside. Your relationships stay outside. All that matters is what you did and what the law says about it. Are you finished with the lecture? Richard asks, his voice turning cold. Because my patience is wearing thin. I'm just getting started, I bark. Bird, bring Mrs. Sterling out here. I want her to see this. A few minutes later, Victoria Sterling is led out. She looks disheveled. Her hair is a mess, and her mascara is running. The moment she sees Richard, she lets out a sob. Richard, do something. She put me in a cage. There was a woman in there who asked me for my shoes. Be quiet, Victoria, Richard says, though his eyes stay locked on mine. The judge was just about to tell us how she's going to fix this. Fix this? I laugh. Oh, I'm going to fix it. Mr. Sterling, you said you paid the $5,000? That takes care of the civil suit, but the contempt charge, that's my call. And your wife's behavior since she got here has been nothing short of disgraceful. I look at Victoria. You told me you owned me. You told me you owned the ground I'm sitting on. Well, let's see how much you own when the cameras are off and the doors are locked. I turn back to Richard. You want her out? Fine. But she's going to apologize. Not to me. I don't care about your apology. You're going to apologize to Mr. Thorne, the man you tried to cheat. And then you're going to apologize to the court for the spectacle you've made. Victoria looks like she's about to faint. Apologize? To him? Richard, tell her no. Richard looks at me. I see him calculating. He's looking for the exit, the loophole, the way to win. But there isn't one. Not today. Judge, he says, his voice like gravel. You're making a very big mistake. You might think you're untouchable because of your ratings, but everyone has a price. Everyone can be bought or broken. The room goes dead silent again. He didn't just say it. He confirmed it. The I own you wasn't just his wife's hysteria. It was their family creed. I feel a strange sense of calm wash over me. I've reached the point of no return, and honestly, it's a beautiful place to be. Bird, I say, my voice steady and clear. Yes, Judge? Mr. Sterling just made a direct threat to a sitting judge in open court. Did you hear that? Bird nods. Loud and clear, Judge. Good, I say. I pick up my gavel. My hand is as steady as a rock. Mr. Sterling, you think everyone has a price? Well, today, your price just went up. Victoria Sterling, you are sentenced to 48 hours in the county jail for contempt. And Richard Sterling, since you seem so fond of your wife's company, and since you've seen fit to threaten me in my own courtroom, I'm holding you in contempt as well. Bird, take them both. The explosion of noise that follows is like a bomb going off. Victoria's screaming. Richard's lawyers are shouting, objection, and you can't do this, and do you know who we are? I hit the gavel, whack, 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 until the wood nearly cracks. I know exactly who you are, I yell over the chaos. You're two people who think the law is a suggestion. Well, for the next 48 hours, the law is going to be the four walls of a cell. Get them out of my sight. As Bird and two other bailiffs move in, Richard Sterling finally loses his cool. He doesn't look like a billionaire anymore. He looks like a cornered animal. You're dead, Judy, he snarls as they lead him away. I'll buy this building and turn it into a parking lot. I'll have you disbarred by Monday. I'll see you on Tuesday then, I yell back. And bring a better lawyer. Yours is useless. The doors slam shut. The courtroom is suddenly eerily quiet. Mr. Thorne is still standing at his podium, looking like he's just witnessed a natural disaster. I sit back. I'm shaking, just a little, but the adrenaline is pure. I look at the gallery. Everyone is staring at me like I've just slain a dragon. Next case, I say, my voice cracking just slightly. But as I look down at my papers, I know the real battle is just beginning. Richard Sterling meant what he said. He has the power, the money, and the ego to try and burn it all down. I look up at the American flag behind me. Not today, Richard, I think. Not on my watch. I head back into chambers after the session, and the silence there is heavy. Bird comes in a few minutes later, tossing his hat on the sofa. Well, he says, that was a first. Usually, people wait until they're in the parking lot to threaten to buy the building. Did they get them processed? I ask, rubbing my temples. They're on their way to county now, Bird says. But Judge, the phones haven't stopped. The governor's office called. The network president is on his way here. And there's a fleet of black SUVs parked outside. I look at him. Do they think I'm going to change my mind, Bird? I think they think you're going to have to, he says quietly. I stand up and walk to the window. I look down at the street. He's right. The SUVs are there. The world of influence is closing in. Bird, I say, get me a cup of tea and call my daughter. Tell her I might be home a little late tonight. I have to explain to a few people that I'm not for sale. Just as I say it, the door to my chambers flies open. It's not a bailiff. It's a man in a very expensive suit carrying a legal-sized envelope. He doesn't look like a lawyer. He looks like a fixer. Judge Shaindlin, he says, no preamble. We have a problem. I turn around, crossing my arms. No, sir. You have a problem. I'm just the one who's about to make it worse. The man sets the envelope on my desk. Inside this envelope is a document that says, you're resigning for health reasons. If you sign it, the Sterlings will drop the lawsuits they've already filed against you, the network, and the city. If you don't, if I don't, I prompt, stepping closer to him. If you don't, he says, his voice like ice, by tomorrow morning, the world will know every secret you've ever had, every mistake, every skeletons in your closet. Richard Sterling doesn't just own banks, Judge. He owns information. I look at the envelope. I look at the man. And then I do something he doesn't expect. I laugh. And it's not the polite chuckle you give at a dinner party. It's the bark of a woman who has seen every trick in the book and a few that haven't been published yet. I walk over to my desk, pick up the envelope, and without even opening it, I drop it into the shredder next to my chair. The machine whirs, devouring the resignation with a satisfying mechanical crunch. The fixer, let's call him Suit, doesn't blink. He just stares at the shredder like I've just committed a crime. That was a mistake, Judge. Richard Sterling doesn't offer second chances, and I don't give first ones to people who come into my chambers and threaten me. I snap. I lean over my desk. My face inches from his. Let me tell you something about secrets, Mr. Suit. I've been a family court judge in the Bronx. I've lived my life in the public eye for decades. If I had a skeleton in my closet, it would have been auditioning for its own reality show by now. You want to dig? Dig. You'll find that I once parked too close to a fire hydrant in 1984, and I occasionally tip 25% when the service is good. That's it. That's the scandal. I point a finger at the door. Now, get out of my office. Bird, show this gentleman where the exit is. And if he trips on the way out, make sure he doesn't sue the city. I'd hate for his influence to be inconvenienced. Bird steps forward, looking like he's been waiting for this all day. Suit adjusts his tie, gives me one last look that's supposed to be menacing but just looks pathetic, and walks out. I sit back down and take a deep breath. My heart is thumping, but it's not fear, it's fury. The arrogance of these people is a disease. They truly believe that the world is a vending machine where you just keep shoving in money until justice pops out. The phone rings again. It's Leo, the network president. I pick it up before the first ring is even finished. If you're calling to tell me to apologize, Leo, you'd better have your own resignation ready. Judy, listen to me. Leo's voice is frantic. The Sterling Group just pulled $40 million in advertising from our parent company. 40 million in 10 minutes. The board is losing their minds. They're talking about a public apology, a misunderstanding statement, the whole 9 yards. Then the board should go into the laundry business because they clearly have no spine. I bark. Leo, look at the ratings. Look at the monitors. The clip of Victoria Sterling telling me she owns me is already viral. The public is cheering. They are sick of people like the Sterlings thinking they're above the law. You want to apologize for being the only show on television that actually holds people accountable? Go ahead. But you'll be doing it without me. Judy, be reasonable. I'm the most reasonable person you've ever met. That's why I'm a judge. I saw a man who worked for 3 months and didn't get paid because a billionaire's wife had bad energy. I saw a woman try to intimidate a court. I did my job. If the network doesn't like it, they can find someone else to wear the lace collar, but they won't find someone who's right. And I am right, Leo. I'm always right. That's why the show is called Judge Judy, not Judge Leo and the Spineless Board. I slam the phone down. I look at Bird. How are our guests doing in county? Bird grins. He's looking at a tablet. Well, according to the intake report, Mrs. Sterling refused to change into the orange jumpsuit. She claimed it clashed with her undertones. The guard told her orange is the new black, and she tried to fire him. And Richard? He's in a holding cell with a guy named Tiny who's in for grand theft auto. Last I heard, Richard was trying to explain the benefits of a diversified portfolio to him. Tiny asked if he could diversify Richard's teeth. I can't help it. I chuckle. It's a grim little sound, but it's there. Good. Let them sit. Let them see what life is like when you can't buy your way out of a room. I spend the rest of the afternoon in my chambers, going over files, but my mind keeps drifting back to the Sterlings. I know they aren't done. A man like Richard Sterling doesn't go to jail for 48 hours and come out a changed man. He comes out looking for blood. By 6 o'clock, the courthouse is mostly empty. The sun is dipping low over the city, casting long, sharp shadows through my window. I'm packing my bag when there's a knock on the door. Not a loud, aggressive knock, but a soft, hesitant one. Come in, I say. The door opens, and Elias Thorne walks in, the gardener. He looks even more tired than he did this morning. He's holding a manila envelope. Mr. Thorne, what are you doing here? You should be home celebrating. You got your money? He walks to my desk and lays the envelope down. I did, Your Honor. The wire went through an hour ago. $5,000. It's everything I needed to keep my business afloat. Then why do you look like you've just lost a loved one? He sits down, uninvited, and I let him. The man has had a rough day. I got a call, Judge, from a lawyer. Not one of the ones in court today, a different one. He said if I kept the money, I'd never work in this state again. He said every contract I have would be canceled by tomorrow morning. He said the Sterlings would make sure no one ever let me touch a blade of grass again. He looks at me, his eyes wet. He told me to come here and tell the press that I lied, that I made the whole thing up to extort them. He said if I do that, they'll give me $50,000 to go away. I feel the ice in my veins turn to fire. And what did you tell him, Mr. Thorne? He looks at the envelope on my desk. I haven't told him anything yet. I came here because you were the only person who stood up for me. I've lived in this city my whole life, and I've always known people like the Sterlings existed. But I never thought I'd be in their crosshairs. I stand up and walk around the desk. I put a hand on his shoulder. It's a rare gesture for me. I'm not a toucher, but this man is the heart of the case. He's the reason I do this. Mr. Thorne, look at me, I say, my voice firm. You are not a liar. You are a craftsman, and you didn't extort anyone. You asked for what you were owed. If you take that $50,000, you're not just taking their money, you're giving them your soul. You're telling them they were right, that they do own you. But my business, your business will be fine, I interrupt. You think they're the only ones with influence? You think I'm just a face on a screen? I've been around a long time. I know people too. People who actually care about things like integrity and hard work. You go home. You keep your $5,000. And if anyone calls you to cancel a contract, you tell them to call my office. He looks up at me, hope flickering in his eyes. You do that? I just did, I say. Now get out of here. And for heaven's sake, buy yourself a decent meal. You look like you haven't eaten since the Reagan administration. He smiles, a real one this time, and stands up. He thanks me 3 times before he finally leaves. When the door closes, I turn to Bird. Did you get that? Bird steps out from the shadows near the coat rack, holding a small digital recorder. Every word, Judge. The threat, the bribe, the whole thing. Good, I say, grabbing my coat, because I have a feeling the secrets Richard Sterling wanted to leak are going to be nothing compared to the one I'm about to drop on the morning news. I walk out of the courthouse, the wind whipping my coat around my legs. The black SUVs are still there. The men in suits are watching me. I don't look at them. I walk straight to my car, my head held high. They think they own this city. They think they own the law. They think they own me. They're about to find out that Judge Judy isn't just a name on a paycheck. It's a verdict. And court is back in session tomorrow morning. I drive home in silence, the city lights blurring past. I'm thinking about the look on Victoria's face when she was led away. I'm thinking about Richard's snarl. They're used to people bowing. They're used to the world bending to their will. But I've never been good at bending. My mother used to say I was born with a straight spine and a loud mouth, and I've spent 70-odd years proving her right. When I get home, my daughter is waiting for me. She's seen the news. Everyone has. Mom, she says, are you okay? The internet is melting down. I'm fine, Nicole, I say, dropping my keys on the table. I'm better than fine. I'm doing my job. They're saying Richard Sterling is going to sue the network for $100 million. They're saying he's going to have the show canceled by Friday. I walk to the kitchen and pour myself a glass of water. Let him sue. Let him scream. He's in a cell right now, Nicole. A billionaire in a room with a man named Tiny. I think for the first time in his life, Richard Sterling is realizing that his checkbook has a limit. But as I sit down, the weariness finally starts to seep in. It's been a long day, a long, ugly day. And I know that tomorrow the pressure will be 10 times worse The network will be breathing down my neck. The lawyers will be filing motions. The press will be camped outside my door. But I'm not worried because I have the truth. And in my world, the truth is the only currency that never devalues. I go to bed, but I don't sleep much. I keep rehearsing the words I'm going to say when the cameras turn on tomorrow. I keep seeing the garden, the beautiful, peaceful garden that Elias Thorne built. A garden that was meant to be a sanctuary, turned into a battlefield by a woman who didn't know how to be human. At 5 a.m., my alarm goes off. I'm up for the first beep. I dress slowly, carefully. My lace collar is crisp. My robe is pressed. I look at myself in the mirror. "You don't own me," I whisper to the reflection. I head back to the studio. The atmosphere is electric. Everyone is whispering. The security has been doubled. Leo is standing in the wings, looking like he hasn't slept in a week. "Judy," he says as I walk past. "The Sterling's lawyers are in the green room. They want to talk." "I don't talk in green rooms, Leo," I say. Not stopping. "I talk on the bench. If they have something to say, they can say it in front of the world." I walk onto the set. The audience is buzzing. The cameras are repositioning. I take my seat, and for a moment, everything is still. "Call the first case," I say. But it's not a new case. The doors open, and it's not a litigant. It's the fixer from yesterday, Suit, along with a woman I haven't seen before. She's carrying a briefcase that looks like it's made of dragon skin. "Your Honor," Suit says, stepping forward, "we have an emergency motion." I don't do motions on this show. I say, "State your name for the record and get to the point." "My name is Sarah Vane. I represent the Sterling estate. We are here to serve you with a restraining order and a notice of intent to sue for defamation, false imprisonment, and judicial misconduct." I look at her. She's young, sharp, and clearly thinks she's the smartest person in the room. "A restraining order?" I ask. "On what grounds?" "On the grounds that you have used your position to harass and humiliate my clients for the purpose of television ratings," she says, her voice echoing in the studio. "We are also demanding the immediate release of Mr. and Mrs. Sterling." I lean back. I look at the camera. I know millions of people are watching. This isn't just a case anymore. This is a referendum on whether the law applies to everyone or just the people who can't afford. A Sarah Vane. "Well, Miss Vane," I say, "that's a very impressive list of words, but I have a list of my own." I reach under my desk and pull out the recording Bird made yesterday. I have a list that includes bribery, witness intimidation, and extortion. Would you like to hear it, or should I just play it for the district attorney? The color drains from Miss Vane's face so fast I think she might actually faint. "I don't know what you're talking about," she stammers. "Of course you don't," I say, "but I think the public should. Bard, let's give the people a little preview of what Sterling influence really looks like." The studio was so quiet you could hear a fly land on a transcript. Sarah Vane is standing there, frozen, her hand still hovering over her expensive briefcase like it's a shield that just turned into glass. Suit looks like he wants to melt into the floorboards. I nod to Bird. He presses a button on the console. The speakers crackle. Then a voice fills the room. It's clear, sharp, and unmistakable. "Every contract I have would be canceled by tomorrow morning. He said the Sterlings would make sure no one ever let me touch a blade of grass again. He told me to come here and tell the press that I lied. They'll give me $50,000 to go away." Then my voice. "And what did you tell him, Mr. Thorne?" Then the sound of the door closing and Bird's voice. "Did you get that?" The recording ends. I let the echo of it bounce off the walls for a few seconds. I look at Sarah Vane. Her mouth is open, but no words are coming out. She looks like a fish gasping for air in a very expensive suit. "Well?" I lean forward, resting my chin on my hand. "Are you still waiting for me to sign that restraining order, Miss Vane? Or do you want to explain to the millions of people watching why your clients are trying to bribe a witness in a civil case?" "Your Honor," she stammers, her voice shaking, I have no knowledge of this recording. This is highly irregular. It's inadmissible." "This isn't a criminal trial yet, counselor," I bark. "This is my courtroom." And I just heard evidence of a felony being planned in my own building. You talk to me about irregular? Attempting to suborn perjury is irregular. Threatening a man's livelihood is irregular. Telling a judge she's owned is irregular. I stand up, and this time, I don't just feel 10 feet tall, I feel like a mountain. You come in here with your dragon skin briefcase and your fancy motions thinking you can bully me into silence? You think because I have a television show, I've forgotten how to be a judge? I was a judge before you were out of diapers, and I'll be one long after your clients are a footnote in a bankruptcy filing. Bird steps forward. Judge, the sheriff's office is on the line. They've finished processing the Sterlings at county. They're asking if you want them transported back here for the hearing on the contempt charge. Oh, you bet I do, I say, a cold smile spreading across my face. Bring them in. And tell them to leave the jewelry in the locker. I want them in orange. I want the world to see what influence looks like when it hits a brick wall. 20 minutes later, the back doors of the courtroom swing open. The audience gasps. It's a collective intake of breath that sounds like a gust of wind. Victoria Sterling walks in first. She isn't draped in silk anymore. She's wearing a bright orange jumpsuit that's 3 sizes too big. Her hair, usually a masterpiece of high-end styling, is matted and dull. She looks smaller, fragile. But the moment she sees me, that entitlement flares up again. Behind her is Richard. He's in orange too. He looks like a man who has spent the last 14 hours staring at a concrete wall and realizing he couldn't buy his way through it. He looks tired, but he still has that look in his eyes, the look of a man who thinks this is just a temporary setback. They are led to the defense table. Sarah Vane rushes to them, whispering furiously. I watch Richard's face change as she tells him about the recording. He looks at Suit, who is staring at his shoes. Richard's jaw tightens. He looks at me, and for the first time, I see a flicker of something that might be fear, or maybe just the realization that he's finally met someone he can't intimidate. Sit down, I command. They sit. Victoria looks like she's about to cry, but she's trying to hold it together. Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, I begin, my voice calm but heavy. Yesterday, you stood in this room and treated it like your personal playground. You insulted a hard-working man. You threatened this court. You claim that because of your wealth and your relationships, the rules don't apply to you. I look at Victoria. You told me, I own you. It was a moment that actually left me speechless for a second, not because I was afraid, but because I was stunned that anyone could be so profoundly delusional. I've lived a long time, and I've seen a lot of ego, but you, lady, take the cake. You actually believed that my integrity had a price tag. Victoria opens her mouth to speak, but Richard puts a hand on her arm. He looks at me. Judge Shindlin, we've had a difficult night. I've instructed my legal team to drop all motions. The judgment for Mr. Thorne has been paid. We'd like to put this behind us. I'm prepared to offer a significant donation to the city's legal aid fund as a gesture of, stop right there. I slam my hand down. You think you can buy your way out of a contempt charge with a donation? This isn't a charity auction, Mr. Sterling. This is justice. You don't get to break the law and then write a tax-deductible check to make the consequences go away. I was merely trying to show. You were trying to bribe the court in public, I roar. Do you ever stop? Is it just a reflex for you? I'm in trouble. Let me open my wallet. Well, your wallet is closed in here. The only thing that matters is your conduct. I look at both of them. The recording I played earlier, the one where your representative tried to bribe Mr. Thorne, has been turned over to the district attorney's office. Whether they decide to prosecute you for witness tampering is up to them. But as for the contempt of this court, that is up to me. Victoria lets out a sob. Please, I can't go back there. The bed, it didn't have sheets, Richard. It was just plastic. Oh, my heart bleeds for you, I say, my voice dripping with sarcasm. A plastic bed. How did you survive the night? Meanwhile, people in this city are sleeping on subways because they can't afford rent, and you're complaining about the thread count in county jail. I lean forward, pinning them with my gaze. You haven't learned a thing. You still think you're victims. You still think I'm the difficult one because I'm making you follow the same rules as the person who cleans your toilets or mows your lawn. I pick up my pen and start writing. This is the moment, the climax, the end of the road for the Sterling's ownership of the world. I am extending your sentence for contempt, I announce. Richard stands up. You can't do that. I've been served. I have rights. You have the right to remain silent, which is something you should have exercised about 24 hours ago, I yell. Sit down. Bird, keep him in his chair. Bard puts a heavy hand on Richard's shoulder. Richard glares at him, but he sits. I am sentencing you both to an additional 5 days, I say, but I'm giving you a choice. A way to purge this contempt and go home today? Victoria looks up, her eyes wide with hope. Anything. What is it? I look at Elias Thorne, who is sitting in the front row of the gallery. He looks small, but he looks steady. You are going to stand up, I say to the Sterlings. You are going to walk over to Mr. Thorne, and you are going to apologize. Not a we're sorry if you were offended apology, a real one. You are going to admit you tried to cheat him. You are going to admit you were wrong. And then you are going to thank him for the beautiful garden he built for you, the garden you tried to use as a weapon against his livelihood. The silence that follows is thick. I can see the gears turning in Richard's head. His ego is screaming no, but his body is screaming for a hot shower and a real bed. Victoria looks at Richard. He looks at her. They look at the camera. They know that if they do this, it will be the lead story on every news cycle for a week. The great Sterling's begging for forgiveness from a gardener. Well, I ask, the clock is ticking. 5 days in county, or 5 minutes of humility. What's it going to be? Richard looks at the floor, then at his wife, then at the gallery filled with people holding their breath. I can see the muscles in his jaw working. This is a man who hasn't apologized for a cup of spilled coffee in 30 years, and now I'm asking him to bow down to a man who gets dirt under his fingernails for a living. Victoria is the first to break. She can't take another night in that cell. She can't take the smell of industrial cleaner and the lack of a silk pillowcase. She stands up, her orange jumpsuit swishing with a sound that's a far cry from her usual designer labels. I'll do it, she whispers. I didn't hear you, Mrs. Sterling, I say, leaning toward my microphone. I'm an old lady. You have to speak up. I'll do it, she shouts, her voice cracking. She walks over to the gallery railing where Elias Thorne is sitting. He stands up slowly, looking stunned. He doesn't look triumphant. He just looks like a man who finally feels the sun on his face after a long winter. Victoria looks at him. Her face is bright red. Mr. Thorne, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have withheld your payment. You did a beautiful job on the garden. It was wrong of me to try to cheat you. I look at Richard. He's still sitting there, stone-faced. Mr. Sterling, are you coming? Or should I tell Bird to get the van warmed up for the trip back to county? Richard stands. He walks over with the gait of a man heading to the gallows. He stands next to his wife, not looking at Elias, but at the wall behind him. I apologize, Richard says, his voice a low growl. My office shouldn't have contacted you with that offer. We respect your work. Look him in the eye, Mr. Sterling. I bark. He's a man, not a piece of furniture. Look at him. Richard shifts his gaze. For 1 second, the billionaire and the gardener lock eyes. In that second, the power dynamic of the city shifts. Richard sees a man he couldn't break, and Elias sees a man who isn't nearly as big as his bank account. I'm sorry, Elias, Richard says. And this time, it actually sounds like he means it mostly because he's terrified of what I'll do if he doesn't. Elias nods once. Thank you. I appreciate that. They turn back to me, looking like two beaten dogs. Now, I say, apologize to this court for your behavior. Apologize for the I own you comments, for the threats, and for the circus you brought into my house. They say it, both of them. We apologize to the court, Your Honor. Good, I say, picking up my pen for the final time. The contempt is purged. You're free to go, But before you leave, let me give you a piece of advice, free of charge. You can buy banks. You can buy buildings. You can even buy silence if the person is weak enough. But you don't own the law, and you certainly don't own the people who uphold it. I look at Victoria. Beauty fades, Mrs. Sterling. But being a decent human being is something you can work on until the day you die. I suggest you start today. I look at Richard. And you? Don't ever step foot in my courtroom again. Because next time, I won't just put you in orange. I'll make sure you stay there long enough to learn the names of every guard in the building. I slam my gavel one last time. Whack! Case closed. Get them out of here. Bird leads them toward the side exit, away from the main cameras. But I know the paparazzi are waiting outside. They'll have to walk through a gauntlet of flashes in those orange jumpsuits. It's an image that will be on the front page of every tabloid by sunset. The Sterling Empire just took a hit that $40 million in advertising won't fix. Elias Thorne walks up to the bench one last time. He doesn't say anything. He just touches the brim of an imaginary hat and gives me a small, grateful smile. I nod back. That's all the thank you I need. As the courtroom clears, I sit there for a moment in the silence. My heart is finally slowing down. Bird comes over and hands me a glass of water. You okay, Judge? He asks. I'm fine, Bird. Just a little tired of people who think they're the center of the universe. Well, Bird says, looking at the door, I think you just knocked them out of orbit. I stand up, smoothing my robe, maybe for a little while. People like that always try to find their way back. But they won't forget today, and neither will the people who watched it. I walk toward my chambers, but I stop at the door and look back at the empty courtroom. The stop line is still there. The flag is still there. The law is still there. They said they owned me. They said they owned the ground I sit on. Well, the ground is still under my feet, and the robe is still on my back. And as long as I'm sitting in that chair, there's only one thing that's owned in this room, the truth. I head into my office and close the door. I have 3 more cases this afternoon, and I'm sure one of them involves a neighbor's cat and a broken fence. It's small, it's petty, and it's exactly where I want to be. Because whether it's a billionaire or a guy with a cat, the rules are the same. And that, as I always say, is the truth.